You have to ask him like a really good quarterback question. Like, who's the hardest hit you've ever taken from? Or like,
oh man, that's a good one.
Oh man.
Can you remember it?
The absolute hardest one was in college actually.
That doesn't surprise me.
So it's not really an NFL answer, but
turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Draft Digest. The sickest NFL draft and scouting podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome into another sick podcast, Draft Digest. John Vogel, Emily Van Buskirk, and special guest joining for the show the second time now, Mr. Luke McCown, 12-year NFL vet. Welcome into the show, Luke. Thanks for joining us. How's everything going with everybody tonight?
Man, it's going great. We've had a great long weekend. School is out for the kids, and so we've been at a ranch, kind of doing some quasi. It wouldn't be camping; it's glamping. We weren't in like a tent or anything. A buddy of mine has a big place down about an hour west of San Antonio, so some time in the river and some fishing and just all around good time. So that's why it's dark. I'm driving on the way back from San Antonio. So
that sounds like my kind of camping, glamping.
Absolutely.
Well, don't worry. I'll be out there. I guess we're doing some glamping too ourselves here for about the next 3 weeks on my side.
There you go.
But guys, first off, thanks again for joining us, Luke. You had really great insight last time we had you on about the quarterback position, specifically the 2024 class when we talked about it then. And so this offseason, what we're kind of doing is we're breaking down the positions and getting into some of the details about, what you're kind of looking for in the position groups, going position by position, and picking on some of those finer details. And I thought there's nobody better to ask than a former NFL quarterback that's done it, that's been there at the top of the top of the game in that stage.
Sure.
And so naturally, one of my favorite people that I know that's done it, it would be Mr. McCown here. So
he has been hyping you up for the last 4 shows I've been on. He's been hyping this up. He's very excited, and as you can tell, but
I don't know how much I know, but well, I guess a lot. And so we'll see we'll see how true everything is. But I enjoy it. I feel like I know a little bit about quarterbacking and the position and what it takes to be pretty good, although I was a career backup. But there is 31 years of NFL quarterbacks between myself and my brother, who's currently the Minnesota Vikings quarterback coach. And so, I think we've got a decent grasp on some of the things, not all of the things, but some of the things that it takes to be successful. So, yeah, I enjoy talking about it.
So I guess one of the first things that I wanted to kind of tackle is, every year that I've done this podcast, we spend the summer going over positions. So, we've had different opinions. I've talked about the quarterback position extensively. I think one of the things that people equate to success a lot of the times is arm strength, arm talent.
Yeah.
I think what you also find is that can oftentimes be an indicator for success, but it is not a necessary requirement.
Sure.
If there were to be a necessary requirement at the quarterback position, what would you believe that to be?
Yeah, necessary requirement is accuracy. And when I say that, we're talking about guys that are picked in the top, top 50 picks of the draft, right? And if there's not an ability to place the ball, accuracy is a premium in the NFL. The windows don't get bigger. The coverage doesn't with the level of competition in regards to preseason, it gets tighter with regards to regular season, and even tighter into the postseason. And so accuracy is for my money, accuracy goes well above arm strength. Now, a little bit of that comes from the fact that I sat behind Drew Brees, who's the greatest thrower of the football that's ever played the game.
Yeah.
Not just from the standpoint of his accuracy, which is clear. And just one little story real quick was I was in training camp off season with New Orleans prior to 2012, going and playing for the Atlanta Falcons. Especially for Drew re-signing his first contract in New Orleans, his first extension there, and so a little bit of an insurance policy, and so once he signed there at the end of training camp, I was released and immediately picked up in Atlanta and played a season there. But I'll never forget the first training camp practice that I was there with him, and this was. Gosh, that would have been 2012. So that would have been my ninth season in the NFL, eighth season, I guess. And he made a throw to Jimmy Graham. And this is just practice now, but it was one of the greatest throws I've ever seen. And I remember calling my brother, like as soon as I got into the weight room and in the locker room, back to my locker, picking up my phone and calling Josh, going, "Hey, you know how we've always talked about how unbelievably accurate Drew is?" He's like, "Yeah." Said it's not even close to what you and I think, man. I just, it's so off the charts, beyond what you can imagine an accurate quarterback to be. The throws that he made in practice, routinely, it's just you can't even. I wish the fans could see those things, because you only got to see about a third of the throws. Right?
Yeah.
On Sundays that he made throughout his career. He made another 2/3 of his throws in his lifetime in practice, and things that he did with the football were just phenomenal. And so I talk about accuracy from that standpoint. And it's not to say that arm strength, that there's not a necessity there. Obviously there is. But the fact of the matter is that
there's a floor to arm strength that you've kind of got to have, and anything above that is just extra, and it really doesn't matter, right? We talk about Anthony Richardson's ability to throw it 85 yards or whatever it is, there's just it's unnecessary. Now, he made some ungodly throws. You look at a few of the throws that he's made in his short career, and it's phenomenal. But the trade-off in terms of placing the ball where you need it, because you're trying to hammer a ball, because you're trying to fit it into a space, or because you're trying to, throw it a long ways, it doesn't. There's no real return on the investment for how hard you can throw a ball. There's some necessity to it, but accuracy will by far outweigh that. Simply because we used to say it all the time. In New Orleans, there's no defense for a perfect pass. Like, if you can place it in the right spot, it doesn't matter how tight the coverage is, and that's the way that that quarterbacks that build their careers off of being able to place the ball, locate the ball in specific spots on the field, or with regards to coverage. When it comes down to that, arm strength it becomes a non-factor.
I guess the next part is, if you're a younger evaluator, because there's a lot of people that follow me, through social media, that want to get into evaluating, that want to understand the game better. But so if you're watching a guy and you're trying to evaluate his accuracy, in your mind, in your opinion, what would be some of the best ways to do that? Because I think one of the first things a lot of people do is they look at completion percentage, and completion percentage doesn't paint a very accurate picture in the modern sport, with the way that a lot of these schemes set up a lot of these throws underneath and extend their run game with the passing game. So what are you kind of more looking for with accuracy? Is it more of a you can get the ball to the right player the right time, or is it more anticipation and throwing with that sort of timing and rhythm?
Yeah, it's a great question. The hard part of that depends on the system that the quarterback is playing in, and then the level of talent, right, that he's playing against.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I would say that
number one is both, and it's kind of a difficult question to answer because you have to have a level of anticipation. The problem with that is you can't really get a gauge on that because of the players that they're playing with. Usually aren't NFL caliber receivers or NFL caliber. Let's just speak about linebackers and safeties, because when we talk about anticipation, we're talking about throwing into windows and holes that don't really incorporate the corner as far as the defense goes. Does that make sense? Because of a corner's place to play, right? And so when we talk about anticipation, we're really talking about things that happen inside the numbers or between the hashes. And so you don't see it, you don't turn on the game film and see in college, see a team that's full of NFL caliber linebackers that can drop to spaces with the detail and depth and the speed with which they're going to be able to do that in the NFL. That requires a certain level of anticipation. Does that make sense? So it's a little bit difficult to really get a bead on how well somebody anticipates in throws. But if you can, it's a plus. I think when you watch C.J. Stroud 3 years ago when he played in the I think it was the national championship game. Man, the throws that he was making, anticipation-wise, were amazing. He makes a throw moving to his right in the back of the end zone on the run that took a lot of anticipation, albeit off platform. That was just fantastic. So there are instances where it happens, but I think you're going to watch a lot of film to get about let's call it 3 to 5 minutes worth of evaluation for purposes of anticipation. You know what I mean? You're gonna look for a lot of opportunities for that to happen to where you go, oh, this guy anticipates really well. So I think that's kind of a difficult space to evaluate from. That's not to say it's not needed. You certainly want to see it, but that's just a difficult space to evaluate from.
Yeah.
I have a metric that is not used. I created it, and I would love to hear your opinion on this for quarterbacks. I call it the thickness quotient. I think that there is a direct correlation between how thick a quarterback is and how long he's going to live in the NFL. Okay. Now, I don't cover the NFL, right? So I can't speak too much except for my examples, but I feel like this could be the thickness quotient should be on the grade and the card. Like, people should look at it, because if you're thicker, you're going to survive hits. You're going to survive. I mean, look at some of thick quarterbacks. Ben Roethlisberger, he's about the peak, right? He's like king, thickness. And then Andrew Luck, thick guy, would have lasted longer had he had an offensive line. Okay. One of the greatest quarterbacks I've ever covered in college. So do you think this could be a good metric that I could get off the ground, or do you think this is a fool's errand for me? That was a good.
So when I was going through the pre-draft process, the combine process, it was 6'4", 220. Does That was kind of the thing, right? If you can be 6'4", 220, that's kind of the prototypical.
Yeah.
And in recent years, that's changed. I don't know what the average height of the quarterbacks this year's draft was, but I think it was somewhere in the 6'1" to 6'2". I mean, it certainly wasn't 6'4".
Right.
And so, but my year, myself 6'4", Eli 6'4", Philip 6'4", Matt Schaub 6'5", Ben 6'5". There was a slew of us that were. Now I was the lightest of that bunch. I was like 210 pounds. But each of them, they were all 220 and better.
Yeah, Philip got up to like 230, I think, at one point. So
yeah, absolutely. And Ben was. I mean, there was rumors about Ben being real big.
I think I only ever saw 240, but he could have been bigger.
Yeah, that's all you ever saw. But there were rumors that it was a lot higher than that. But
yeah.
So but that's changed in recent years, and again, it kind of goes back to there's got to be an element of movement. Can he take hits and can he, withstand the punishment of a 13-game season in college? And so toughness is a thing that I think is really, really high on my list. Like, can he stare down the barrel?
Let me ask you this then, because you say you like a guy that can stare down the barrel. I agree with you. I want a guy. Yep. I mean, that's where my fullback love comes, is guys that'll just run into this fire. Sure. And, fearlessness. But my question is, because I watch a lot of college football, that's all I watch, to be fair. So how do you know? And I know this is probably hypothetical. It's like, you can't know for sure if that toughness is going to translate, but what is a good indicator to tell that a guy who's tough in college and can stare down that barrel will be able to do the same in the NFL when it is quicker, faster, bigger, whatever? How do you know if that's going to translate?
Yeah, there's got to be a level of competition that he's played against. Okay. Right. And again, I think that we're generally talking about top 2 to top 3 rounds, right? Mm-hmm. I was a 4th round pick, played a lot of football, started 45 games, played against big competition. Accuracy
that was before you could get all them waivers back then too, Luke.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, you wouldn't have looked at my career stats college wise and gone, this guy's an accurate quarterback. And yet when I got to the NFL, every time that, you would look, that I got to play, I was in the upper 60s or even 70s, as far as completion percentage goes. So there's nuances to all of it, right? But there's level of competition come into play when evaluating whether a guy's tough or not. And then, his ability to not miss games. I mean, there's something to be said for guys that just don't miss games. So I would look at, starts and start streaks. That was a big knock on Tyler Shuck this year, right? Is just injury history, which is a real thing. Now, sometimes it's unfortunate, but sometimes guys just will themselves onto the field, and it doesn't matter.
Was Andrew Luck. That's who Andrew Luck was.
Yeah, that's exactly who he was. And so it's tough. It's tough to evaluate toughness because it is because I've seen guys that, man, took shot after shot in the face, bloody chin, gets up and plays through college, and then gets to the NFL and just withers under the slightest bit of pressure, under the one hit, and it takes him out of it. So, listen, it's a little bit of a, we try to make these educated guesses as best we can. At the end of the day, college and the NFL are different animals. They are different animals. And some guys come and they ratchet it up and they level up to, to the level of the NFL. And some guys come and the bright lights and the bigger names on the back of the jerseys kind of makes them fold a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I guess when you're looking at you hear the term raw used a lot, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And I think there's a certain thing that I kind of look for when I hear raw. Maybe two things.
Okay.
First off, platform, right? The
Yeah.
footwork all the way through the drop, or the 3-step, the 5-step. Can you tell that they're 3-step, 5 steps? Does a 3-step look like 3 steps, or is it 4 or 5?
Right.
Those little things like that. And then when they step into the throw, what does that angle look like that they're throwing from their platform? And then the release. What kind of a release is it? Is it compact? Are they extending over their head like a tennis racket? Where is the ball coming out? What point is it? Is it elongated? Is it toward the end of the stroke of the throw? Like those little things like that. If I feel like the player is raw, it usually comes down to platform. How important is platform? And is there anything in that raw discussion that I just missed?
No, not at all. Not at all. And platform is extremely important. There has to be a base level from where we decide whether he's a good passer or not, right? And that typically comes right when we put on shorts and a t-shirt, we go out on the field and we throw and we go, hey, this guy's got a good base and a good platform. He's on balance. He knows how to get balanced. There's proper weight transfer, all those kind of fancy things. And ultimately what we're looking for is, can he put it from A to B accurately and on time, and throwing the right type of ball that's necessary, or the type of ball that is called for in that route or in that scheme or in that coverage, right? With regards to footwork that's going to be required of him in the NFL. And even that's kind of morphing a little bit over the years. Where when I got into the NFL, 3,000 years ago, there was very much a this is a 3-step, this is a 5-step, this throw is only for a 3-step, rhythm throw. What people nowadays call a rhythm throw or a no hitch, and this is a 3+1 or a 5+1 or a 5 rhythm to implement the shotgun. I remember Coach Gruden asking me to do a study on the shotgun between years 2004 and 2005. In the last couple of years, with drops and timing from the shotgun, some of which you've seen Aaron. He does a lot of 2-step stuff in the shotgun.
Yeah.
Brady did that kind of a I call it a drag step. It's like 1 step with a drag, and then he sets up the throw. So there wasn't as much leeway for players when I was coming up in the NFL as far as it goes. But there is a level of just base understanding of if I'm throwing a 10 out, right? I'm throwing it on time in 3 steps. I'm getting the ball out. If I'm throwing a glance or a bang post or a wrap in or these different things that are in breaking routes, and I'm throwing them on time, I'm taking a 2-step or a drag step, plant throw. It might be a 3 quick, but there's definitely been here in the last couple of years a movement towards what's the comfort level of the quarterback, and how does the route concept or the timing of it make sense to him. Bryce Young, right? Big in not really having a set drop. He just kind of, my brother drafted him in Carolina. He just kind of fills it out. And so, some guys can make it work. For my money, I want to see a guy drop under center. I want him to have a basic idea of how to feel the rhythm of a concept and feel the rhythm of a route based on how he goes from under center. Because of the nuance of it all from a shotgun, we can figure that out. But how are you going to make that work under center? And so we talk about, when you going to your question out full circle, talking about how raw somebody is, right? Jalen Milroe would have been a guy that this year a lot of people said was raw, very raw. He's got he's wildly athletic, highly intelligent, and has the prerequisite arm strength that we've already kind of discussed a little bit, and you've seen glimpses of his ability to play time at Alabama. What you may say is, well, if we can get his feet and his eyes to work together, we can correct some of the decisions that kind of skewed his draft prospects from maybe higher in the first round to where he was early in the third. I think it was early in the third now, or late second, whatever it was. But
those are guys that are raw for me. Those are guys that need some polishing, that need a little better strict coaching, if you will. Not that they weren't strict at Alabama, just an understanding in the system and why it matters, why the timing of your footwork matters. And so those things help for me polish a lot of things up for guys that are raw.
Emily, you got a couple of questions?
Oh my gosh, I always have questions. I thought it would be really funny, and I don't know what your sense of humor is with this kind of stuff, but have you ever heard of the game Kiss, Marry, Kill?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So if I gave you,
sure.
We play this a lot. So one of the things I like to play is name fullbacks. The other one is name really thick quarterbacks. And then the third one is to play start, bench, cut with guys, right? So I was thinking it'd be funny if I threw you 3 names from this draft and you had to pick whether you would start, bench, or cut them. And this is disclaimer, not mean to these players, just based on your professional opinion. So don't worry about hurting them. Okay, are you ready? I'm gonna give you 3 guys. You're gonna hate
I'm ready. Go for it.
Go for it.
Shedeur Sanders, I had to. Dylan Gabriel, and Jalen Milroe.
Okay. So as rookies this year.
Yeah,
right,
just
so, I'm gonna. Yeah, just so. If I have to go on purely what I know of them as players, right? What I know of them as players, and how what they do will potentially translate.
Yes, 100%
to the NFL. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to start
Dylan Gabriel because of what I know he did in college, his production.
I like that. I'm here for that.
He's got 63 starts.
Yeah.
This was, John, to your question just a little while ago, as far as evaluating, we don't put enough weight in experience. When a guy has 63 starts, especially at the level of football that he played at, whether it's Central Florida and Oklahoma and then Oregon, he's seen a lot of football, right? He's listened to a lot of different links regarding defenses, regarding coverages. He's made every different type of throw you can imagine. So when we talk about evaluating quarterbacks, experience has to be higher. And this is years ago, he started 12 games. And was whatever it was, number 5 overall pick or whatever it was. I can't remember what it was. And that's crazy to me. How can you see
can't know
the things that you need to see in only 12 games, right? It's ridiculous. So
I just like to point out that Jalen Milroe is the thickest of those 3, so he does have the most potential. I'm telling you, this thickness quotient, I'm onto something. I'm telling you.
Interesting.
So basically, he would have cut Shedeur Sanders. That's what we got out of that.
That is what I heard. Yeah. And
did you think that was a good choice of 3? I thought I was trying to make it hard.
I was sitting there when you went through the 3, and I was like,
"What would you do? What would you do?"
I think I would probably do exactly what he did for those reasons, because I wouldn't be ready to play Milroe right now.
Here's my quandary with that. I agree with the cutting, obviously, sure, but I might play Milrow because I like Dylan, and I do think there is truth to what he said about how many places he's played and how many games and systems he's done and all that. His education is incredible, but he can be a little bit reckless, and that would not bode. Like, I don't know if you've seen some of the plays, especially where he's gotten hurt at ends of drives, that unnecessary things. And part of that is coaching, but part of that is also he wants, he's very aggressive and he's competitive and he wants to do those things, but it makes me a little nervous, especially at the next level. And I feel like Milrow's a little more composed and he's been under a system that's more NFL-like from top to bottom. So that's why I think I would start Milrow and then bench Gabriel.
Milrow probably had the best deep ball in this entire class.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I feel like people did not talk about him enough.
They did.
Like, it's crazy to me. And he's such a good kid. Like, he was one of my favorite, like, people, genuine human beings. So it's wild that it was so under talked about.
Yeah, Jimmy is Luke back in there just so we can wrap up with him?
Oh, he's back.
Maybe.
No, maybe not.
No, it doesn't look like it.
That's okay. He's driving.
Yeah, technical issues. I mean, I've driven through Texas a couple times myself.
I'm just impressed that he was able to do that. Like, he's quite the multitasker. Yeah,
it's nothing but wasteland out there for a lot of it. I'll tell you this. I went through North Texas. Okay, so anybody who lives in any other parts of it, I spent time in El Paso. I spent time going through. It was very North Texas. I mean, it was 50 miles between gas stations. It was nuts. Yeah.
Well, you're talking to someone who lives in California, and our state is insanely long. So
yeah. Well, ours is long too here in Tennessee. It's very short, but it's long.
I guess that's true. Okay, quickly, of the Texas cities, what is your, like, how would you rank top favorite Texas cities, like top 5 favorite cities?
Here we go. Sorry.
No,
okay. Don't be sorry. I'm sorry that you're doing so many things right now, driving and listening to us.
Well, I just pulled into my driveway, so we should be good to go now.
Amazing.
So
we were just talking about how we agreed.
All right.
We agreed with you in your decisions for the most part. I would probably flip-flop Milrow and Gabriel, just because Gabriel scares me a little bit with his recklessness. I've seen him get hurt at the end of drives in games that he did not need to be doing that in.
Sure.
I admire his fearlessness, but it's a little bit like, I feel like Milrow more of an NFL polish because of where he played and how he played. So
yeah, sure. But, no, that makes sense.
I'll touch on your average size thing here real quick because as Emily discovered last week, I've been going through the positions, pulling all the current averages.
Oh yeah.
The current average NFL quarterback size is 6'2.5" and 221.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
what is that up or down from past years?
That is trending down. That has been trending down the last couple years, several years.
Yeah.
And you have to think too, because we've just introduced Bryce Young, Kyle Murray. These are number 1 picks that are 5'9". Baker Mayfield is 6 foot. These are all number 1 overall picks. So size is kind of becoming something that a lot of people will overlook due to certain skill sets. With Bryce, his calling card was clearly he's an improviser. I mean, he is an elite level improviser.
Yeah.
That throw he made, that stays in my mind against LSU when he's got a defender converging on him, coming straight at him. He's run the line of scrimmage and he just sidearms it behind the defender, like around the defender. Yeah. And then if his receiver knew that he could do that, I mean, it was a touchdown, and he didn't. Yeah. So the ball goes up in the air, it hits his hands off the air, and gets picked off. But just seeing him improvise, he was incredible.
Yeah, he's got a unique, a very unique feel for the game. I mean, listen, 5'9", 5'10", 182 pounds or whatever he was, like small, right? Mm-hmm. But Nick Saban would tell you he was the quickest guy on their team. Like, you think about that, and not necessarily in a measurable way. I'm not talking about a 3-cone drill, right? I'm not talking about a pro agility at the combine, but just the ability to maneuver my body quickly to avoid a devastating hit, and yet tough enough to stand there and take just enough of it, but still get the throw off. Pretty unique. Yeah. But yeah. So I would Dylan Gabriel. You know, I think his production would give him that nod. Jalen Milroe, and then unfortunately that would put Shedeur as cut, you know, for all intents and purposes of the game that we're discussing here. So but I think that those two guys, I think you know exactly what Gabriel is because of his playing experience, so that as a play caller, you know, and as a coach, you kind of know what you're getting, right? And so, you know, one of the biggest hurdles as a coach or a play caller that you got to get over is, I don't know what this guy's going to be when the lights come on. I'm just not really sure.
Yeah.
And or, you know, I don't know how to call plays for him. But with that many starts and with, you know, with the places that he's been, I think you kind of know what you're getting. And then, you know, again, I think the ceiling is so high for a Milroe. Now, some would say that, hey, let's get him on the field and let him learn as he plays. He's a smart something guy. To be said for that. He's a smart guy. There's something to be said for that. I tend to think that that history has been kinder early in the career to guys like Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers, you know, those types that have had to sit for a year or so. Then the you know, the David Carrs of the world, where, you know, you throw them right in and it just, and I know David and played against him in college and knew him through the NFL, but he would tell you that hurt. Like those learning curves can be damaging, and so especially if the organization is not prepared around you, what needs to be in place, the infrastructure, if you will, of the team is not there to support you as a player. But I think Milroe has too high of a ceiling to go throw him out there and go, hey, you're going to learn on the fly. No, I want to control that. I want to, as a coach, I want to be the one that goes, you're ready, let's go. You know, and for, you know, because once you turn him to the wolves, you can't control the outcome. You know what I'm saying? And so you can't. Let me put it this way: you can't control the development. You can't control whether he's getting blitzed or how he picks it up, or the coverages that he's going to see and whether he sees them or not. Right? If you give him to me on a practice field, I can control that setting for him, and I can give him those things at the pace in which he can receive them. Does that make sense? I can control. You know, he doesn't have to drink water from a you know what I mean, a fire hydrant. He can turn on he can turn on the faucet.
That's such a coach speak. I love that.
Yeah. So
I love that. I also like to say that Jalen Milroe is the thickest of those three, so good choice in that regard.
Yeah.
He would survive. He'd be all right.
He'd be strong.
Yeah.
The last thing I wanted, just real quick, you know, before we wrap this up, because we're right at the time limit. Garrett Nussmeier or Carson Beck?
Garrett Nussmeier.
Yeah,
Garrett Nussmeier.
Me too. 100%.
You and I talked a lot, I think, throughout the season a little bit. And I heard the talk, you know, Kuiper and some others that kind of had Beck pegged as a number one pick, like preseason, like this time a year ago, right?
Yeah.
And I never saw it. I never saw that, to be quite honest with you. I never saw number one pick for sure. And I'm not quite, and I know his season was rough, and I get that. And there was injuries towards the end of the season, and I understand that too. But I can genuinely tell you there was only maybe 2 or 3 drives that I saw of him this year where I thought, yeah, that guy got first round capabilities. I just don't see it. I think he's a third round guy. And I'll talk a lot about first and third round quarterbacks because there's not a ton of quarterbacks that get picked in the second round. Mm-hmm. They just don't generally go there. Yep. They're either good enough to be in the first or you take them in the third. And so I kind of think he's more of a third round guy from what I've seen. No, I've not watched every. I always say this. I've not watched every. For those that would watch this podcast and go, well, what do you know? And I've not watched every drop back that he's. I don't sit and watch the all 22 of every snap of every quarterback that I talk about or evaluate. I don't. But I also don't think that I need to. I really don't. And that may be a little arrogant. I don't know. But I don't think that I need to. I think I can get a pretty good grasp of who these guys are. That doesn't mean I'm right all the time also. And I don't always claim to be right all the time. But I don't feel like I have to watch the all 22 of every pass these guys have made to make at least a semi articulate and accurate evaluation. So I think now I don't necessarily think at this moment I don't necessarily think Nussmeier's a first round prospect either. I think his season was up and down enough that makes me go, well, I need to see more consistency. Because here's the thing, the difference between guys, and this is where evaluation gets really hard, John. Here's the difference between guys like me that had some flashy moments in college and was athletic, could run, strong arm, those things ended up and lots of experience and experience against quality competition, right? Against Miami of 2001, Auburn's, the Michigan States of the world, teams that were far bigger, far more talented, and yet I had good, really solid production. The difference between me and Ben Roethlisberger, Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers in 2004 was consistency. I just didn't do it every week. I didn't play to that level every week, and that bumped me way down. And the fact that those three guys are going to be in the Hall of Fame, so that also bumped me down. Okay,
fingers crossed about Rivers. Fingers crossed about Phil.
Yes.
I hope he does.
Someday, one day, maybe. But
I got one more question before we go.
It's consistency. It is. It's the ability to do it week in and week out. Joe Burrow had a magical senior year. Prior to that year, he was 4th round pick, maybe 6th round pick. But then he did it for 13 weeks, and it was incredible. Yeah. And he did it every week for 13 weeks. And that, and so it's consistency. It's not ability. It's the ability to do it every week at the same level that would qualify you as a first round talent.
I agree with that.
That's fair.
I got to ask this question because I feel like you have a little experience with it, and it's something we see a lot currently. The last couple of years, we're seeing quarterbacks in college who have fathers, uncles, grandfathers, whatever, who played the game of football, right? So big Arch Manning deal, Sanders, there's a lot of that. There's EJ Warner. I just did a story on him. He's out at Fresno State. His dad, Kurt Warner, is very involved and is always around. And I think it's good to a degree, but I'd be curious your take on that. These players that have that kind of background and they have that support system from guys that have played in the NFL, the guys went through it but at a very different time than the game is at now.
Sure.
Does it help or does it hurt or does it really just depend on who the guy is?
And real quick. Owen McCown. You missed out on that one?
I wasn't going to say
it. I wasn't going to say it.
I wasn't trying to be weird, but yes, that's part of why I think that you might have an opinion on this.
Yeah, listen, I don't think that it can hurt. Okay. I think each journey is a little bit different. Obviously, EJ's been wildly successful throughout his college career, and yet he's had to go to 3 different places.
Yeah.
And so that's certainly not a knock on his upbringing. Kurt does a fantastic job with him, right? I think everybody's journey is a little bit different with regards to to how they how each player kind of sees their career going, and they may see it through the lens of my dad's a Hall of Famer, and they may see it through the lens of my dad's a career backup, or my uncle's a career backup, or whatever. But I think of it in terms of this, like I think it was Teddy Roosevelt that said, "Give a man a fish, feed him for a day; teach a man to fish, and feed him for a lifetime." If we can teach the position of quarterback to our kids, to our nephews, to whatever, at least on some level, the things that we understand about it, the things that they can understand about it, will allow them to play longer than if we just sit back and go, "Hey, you'll figure it out." And so, you know what I mean? I don't want to just hand them the ball and go, "Hey, you know, I didn't have a dad that played in the NFL, so you'll be okay." You know, you know, everybody's journey is a little bit different. I think it helps. I think the position is so hard, and what's being required at the NFL level is so intense and detailed that you can't possibly not be prepared enough going into it. You can't possibly, you know, and listen, I mean, that's why you see such a surge in private quarterback coaching. Like, it's a real deal. And you know, of which I'm a part of. And so I enjoy sharing that part of what I understand to the guys that I get to work with. But there's you can't possibly be too prepared for this thing, that this really, really rare dream that you're chasing, to play quarterback, to be one of 32, or let's just, because I was one of 64, because I was probably number 64.
That's still a rare number. I mean, that's crazy.
It's a rare number, and so you can't possibly be prepared enough for that. So, you know, I think let's teach them as much as we can, and you know, tell them to own it. John Gruden used to always tell me about his offense. He's like, "This is, you know, I want you to learn my offense, but I want you to put your own spin on it." You know, and so that's, you know, we're going to share with them our experiences, what we know about the game, and then it's up to them to go out and put their own spin on it, own it, and believe in it themselves, and do what they can with it. And it's fun to see. It's fun to watch these guys coming up that you know, they have such a legacy, that are legacy quarterbacks, with regards to their dads or uncles being, you know, having been players.
It makes me feel old, but I like it. I like that we're getting to see this, like,
for sure,
resurgence of it. Are you going to go out to La Tech at all? One of my favorite quarterback coaches of all time, Tony Franklin, is back coaching there as offensive coordinator. So are you going to make it out to any games?
I plan to.
We'll have to all link and go to one. I love those games.
Yeah, I used to do sideline radio. I've done it for like 2 out of the last 4 years. I did sideline radio for a handful of games, and so that's a lot of fun.
That's cool.
But my kids, my older kids are all, you know, into Friday night football now, and so that makes Saturdays kind of hard. But yeah, I always love getting over to Ruston and watching those guys throw down a little bit.
We got to do it. It's fun.
Yep.
Well, I think that I could spend another hour, honestly, on it, you know, on the quarterback position. But unfortunately, not in the cards tonight. Luke, I appreciate the time and you jumping on here with us and dropping some insight at the quarterback position. So much more that we can get into it. And I'm sure at some point we will.
Anytime.
Yeah. You mentioned the private quarterback coaching. Is there anything else that you want to go ahead and plug real quick before you jump off this podcast?
No, I listen, I would say that, you know, I'm getting highly interested in Division II football. My oldest son is a transfer at West Texas A&M. It's they've got the number one facilities, number one stadium, and probably in all of Division II. It's really incredible. They're a sleeping giant. Watch for what they do on the Division II level in the years to come.
All right.
I'm gonna.
All right.
I'm into it.
All right. Pop on the tape. There we go. Let's go.
Yeah, man. Let's go.
Thanks again,
Thank
Luke.
you so
I
much.
appreciate it.
You bet.
Jimmy, let's go ahead and wrap it up.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Draft Digest on YouTube, X, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.